Vision is arguably our most dominant sense as humans. It's so central to our experience that roughly 30% of our entire cerebral cortex is dedicated to visual processing, far more than any other sense. The complexity of our visual system is staggering, involving intricate connections between the eyes and the brain that transform light into the rich visual world that we perceive. What's particularly fascinating is that vision has evolved independently multiple times throughout nature's history. From the compound eyes of insects to the camera-like eyes of vertebrates to entirely different visual organs in mollusks like octopuses, evolution has repeatedly invented ways to detect light because visual information provides such a tremendous survival advantage. For most of us, color is a fundamental aspect of this visual experience. We identify ripening fruit, potential dangers, and even subtle emotional cues in others partly through color perception. But not everyone experiences this full spectrum. Color vision deficiencies affects over 300 million people worldwide, roughly the population of the entire United States, with red-green color blindness being the most common, affecting roughly 1 in 12 men and 1 in 200 women. To be clear, most people with color blindness don't see the world in black and white. Rather, they have difficulty distinguishing certain colors from others. Someone with red-green color blindness might see reds, oranges, and greens as more similar shades of the same color. They can still perceive many colors, just not with the full palette that those with typical color vision experience. For most, it's a mild inconvenience, but for some with severe forms like achromatopsia, it can be truly debilitating. Imagine being functionally blind in sunlight, unable to distinguish any colors at all. People with color vision deficiencies generally adapt remarkably well. They develop workarounds, learn contextual cues, and many lead their lives without significant limitations. But they do miss out on certain experiences and may face career restrictions in fields where precise color discrimination is essential, from electrical engineering to commercial piloting, marketing, photography, and even pharmaceutical manufacturing, where subtle color changes can indicate chemical reactions or potential contamination. At Apprentice.io, our fearless leader and CEO Angelo is famously colorblind, which is why Apprentice's colors are black and white, and why the Apprentice platform was primarily black, white, with some blues for most of our development history over the past 10 years. For decades, color blindness was considered a permanent condition, something you were born with and would live with for the rest of your life. The conventional wisdom held that even if we could fix the genetic issues in the eye, the brain just wouldn't know what to do with this new information. After all, how could a brain that had never processed certain colors suddenly learn to see them? But science has a way of challenging our assumptions. Research over the past 15 years has opened exciting possibilities for potentially treating color vision deficiencies through gene therapy, adding functional genes to retinal cells to enable them to detect wavelengths of light they couldn't before. Welcome to Apprentice.io's Industry Insights. I'm Frank Maggiore, and today we're diving deep into the revolution happening in gene therapy for color vision. We'll explore how normal color vision works, what goes wrong in color blindness, and how cutting-edge treatments are changing lives. We'll hear about the remarkable animal studies that paved the way, look at the current human clinical trials, and even peek into a future where we might enhance human vision beyond what nature intended. We'll examine how normal color vision works, what causes color blindness, and how gene therapies are being developed to potentially address these conditions. We'll look at groundbreaking animal studies that upended our understanding of adult brain plasticity, the current state of human clinical trials, and the manufacturing challenges that must be overcome to bring these treatments to market. Regulatory agencies have approached these treatments cautiously, and with good reason. The FDA and other global regulators must carefully weigh the risks of novel gene therapies against the benefits, especially for conditions that aren't life-threatening. Color blindness, while certainly affecting quality of life, doesn't typically cause serious medical complications or shorten lifespan. However, as safety data accumulates from gene therapy trials for other conditions and manufacturing processes improve, regulatory perspectives are evolving. We're seeing increased openness to clinical trials for vision enhancement, particularly for more severe forms of color blindness where the risk-benefit calculation is clearly more favorable. So, whether you're someone affected by color blindness or other vision deficiency, a professional in pharmaceutical development, or simply fascinated by the intersection of genetics, neuroscience, and pharmaceutical manufacturing, adjust your color settings and stay tuned. Let's start with the foundation. How exactly does normal color vision work? Think of your eyes as sophisticated cameras, constantly capturing light and transforming it into the colorful world you experience. At the back of your eye is the retina, a thin layer of tissue packed with about 120 million photoreceptor cells. These cells come in two main varieties, rods and cones. Rods are extremely sensitive to light, but don't detect color. They're your night vision specialist. Cones, on the other hand, are your color specialist. Most humans have three types of cone cells, each containing a specific photopigment that captures different wavelengths of light. We have S cones, short wavelength, that respond best to blue light. M cones, medium wavelength, that respond to green light. And L cones, long wavelength, that respond to red light. This is why humans are called trichromats. We have three types of color receptors. When light enters your eye, these cones get activated in different combinations and intensities. Your brain then interprets these signals to create the rich tapestry of colors you perceive, from the deep blue of an ocean to the vibrant red of a rose. It's an incredible system that allows us to distinguish millions of different colors. Now, what happens when this system has a glitch? That's where color blindness comes in. There are several different types, but the most common is red-green color blindness. This condition affects approximately 1 in 12 men, but only about 1 in 200 women. The stark difference in prevalence between sexes is no coincidence. It's genetic. The genes for red and green color vision are located on the X-chromosome. Women have 2 X-chromosomes, so if one has a mutation, the other can often compensate. Men, however, have only 1 X-chromosome, so if there's a mutation, there's no backup copy. Red-green color blindness comes in different flavors. In protanopia, the L cones are missing, making reds appear darker and greener. In deuteranopia, the M cones are missing, causing reds and greens to look more similar, often appearing as various shades of brown or yellow. There's also blue-yellow color blindness, called tritanopia, but that's exceptionally rare, affecting only about 1 in 10,000 people. This occurs due to missing or malfunctioning S cones. The most severe form is complete color blindness, or achromatopsia. It's a rare autosomal recessive condition that affects an estimated 1 in 30,000 people worldwide. People with this condition have no functioning cones at all, meaning they see the world entirely in shades of gray, like watching a black and white film. They also typically have very poor visual acuity and extreme sensitivity to light, often needing dark glasses even indoors. Achromatopsia is caused by mutations in multiple genes, with the most common being CNGA3 and CNGB3, which account for about 75% of cases. These genes are vital for the proper functioning of all cone cells. For decades, these conditions were simply considered untreatable. The conventional wisdom was that even if we could fix the genetic defects in the eye, the brain wouldn't know what to do with the new information. After all, how can an adult brain that never processed color before suddenly learn to see it? That assumption was about to be shattered by 2 monkeys named Dalton and Sam. In 2009, something extraordinary happened in a research lab at the University of Washington that could change everything we knew about treating color blindness. A husband and wife team of vision scientists, Drs. Jay and Marie Neitz, performed what seemed like an impossible feat. They gave color vision to 2 adult male squirrel monkeys who had been colorblind since birth. Now, these weren't just any monkeys. Male squirrel monkeys like Dalton and Sam are naturally red-green colorblind. That's what we call dichromats. They only have 2 functioning types of cone cells instead of 3. This makes them perfect test subjects for studying potential human treatments. The experiment was elegant in concept, though technically challenging in execution. The researchers used gene therapy. Specifically, they packaged human L-opsin gene, the one responsible for seeing red wavelengths, inside a harmless virus called an adeno-associated virus, or AAV. This virus acts like a genetic delivery truck, carrying the new gene to the target cells. The team then surgically injected this viral vector behind the retinas in the monkeys. The hope was that some of the monkeys' existing green-sensitive cone cells would start producing the human red-sensitive photopigment as well. But here's where it gets really interesting. Even if the monkey's eyes started detecting red wavelengths, would their brains, which had never processed red before, know what to do with this new information? Remember, these were adult monkeys whose visual systems were already fully developed. The prevailing scientific dogma said their brain should be too rigid, too hardwired to adapt to completely new sensory inputs. To find out if treatment worked, the researchers trained the monkeys on color discrimination tests. Before treatment, the monkeys were shown a computer screen with colored dots along with gray ones and asked to touch the colored target. Not surprisingly, they failed miserably at distinguishing red from green dots. They were colorblind after all. After the gene therapy, the researchers waited and waited for weeks. Nothing changed. The monkeys still couldn't pass the color test. You can imagine the monkeys looking over at each other while trying to figure out what's going on with the computer screens. Do you see anything, Dalton? Nothing, Sam. Crazy scientists got us doing tests for no reason. I just want my grapes as a reward, damn it. But then, about 5 months after the initial treatment, something remarkable happened. Suddenly, both Dalton and Sam began acing the test. They could identify not just green, which they could always see, but now red as well. They were seeing colors they had never perceived before in their lives. You can only imagine the surprise for these monkeys now being able to see these new colors they never observed before. This was revolutionary. It shattered the long-held belief that the adult brain couldn't adapt to new sensory information. These monkeys' brains had effectively rewired themselves to process new colors. The success wasn't temporary either. 2 years later, Dalton and Sam were still seeing in full color, proving the treatment had lasting effects. The researchers released videos of the monkeys joyfully picking through colorful fruits and vegetables, a visual feast they couldn't have appreciated before. The monkey Dalton was actually named after John Dalton, the famous scientist who first described color blindness in 1794 after realizing he saw the world completely differently than others. Dalton the monkey had to overcome the very condition his namesake had discovered. The implications were enormous. If adult monkeys' brains could adapt to new color information, there was good reason to believe human brains could do so as well. The NEATS team had proven not only that gene therapy could treat color blindness at the level of the eye, but that the adult brain possesses remarkable plasticity and ability to adapt to new sensory information even decades after development. This groundbreaking work, published in Nature, sparked a surge of interest in developing similar treatments for humans. It was a proof of concept the field had been waiting for. Color vision could potentially be restored or even given for the first time to those who had never experienced it. The rate to translate this success to human patients was on. So where do we stand today with bringing color vision therapy to humans? The progress has been both exciting and humbling. While the monkey experiments gave us a spectacular proof of concept, there's been a fascinating twist in how this research has developed for humans. Rather than starting with common red-green color blindness, researchers have actually focused first on the rarer but more severe form I mentioned earlier, achromatopsia. Why start with the rarer condition? It comes down to risk versus benefit. For someone with standard red-green color blindness, life is generally manageable. Sure, it's inconvenient and limits some career options, but it's not debilitating. Compare that to achromatopsia, where patients experience not just a complete inability to see colors, but also extreme light sensitivity, involuntary eye movements, and generally poor vision. For these patients, the potential benefits of treatment far outweigh the risks of an experimental therapy. Plus, and this is where the business side meets the science, achromatopsia affects around 27,000 patients in the US alone with no approved treatments. That creates a clear market opportunity and a regulatory pathway, despite the significantly smaller patient population. Several pioneering companies have been leading this charge. Applied Genetic Technologies Corporation, AGTC, has been at the forefront, developing gene therapies for both CNGA3 and CNGB3 mutations. Their phase 1-2 trials showed encouraging results, particularly in pediatric patients treated with the CNGB3 therapy, with improvements in retinal sensitivity and light discomfort. Other players include Mira GTX, which partnered with Janssen, a Johnson & Johnson company, and Biogen, which acquired Nightstar Therapeutics. The fact that pharmaceutical giants like J&J and Biogen have invested heavily in this area speaks to its promise. The basic approach in all these therapies is similar to what worked in the monkeys. Use a viral vector to deliver a functional copy of the mutated gene directly into the retina. But the results have been mixed. Some patients show meaningful improvements, while others see little benefit. What's particularly interesting is that some patients report seeing red as a kind of a glow that's different from other colors. They struggle to describe it because they've never experienced anything like it before. They lack the vocabulary for a sensation that's entirely new to them. One patient described it as appearing on a different plane rather than the background, or having a special quality that made it shine differently. Age appears to be a critical factor in treatment success. Remember how the monkey experiment showed the adult brain could adapt to new color information? That's true, but it seems the younger the brain, the more adaptable it is. Children who receive these therapies generally show better responses than adults. The delivery method presents another challenge. The treatment must be surgically injected behind the retina, not a simple procedure. And there have been safety concerns too. In some clinical trials, high doses cause severe inflammation in younger patients' eyes. While these eventually resolve, they highlight the delicate balance between effectiveness and safety. The regulatory pathway for these therapies is complex. Gene therapies must clear extremely high safety bars, especially for non-life-threatening conditions. This is appropriate. We're talking about genetically modifying cells in the human eye after all. The timeline for potential approvals vary. For achromatopsia gene therapies, we might see the first approvals within the next 3 to 5 years, assuming the ongoing trials continue to show positive results. For common red-green color blindness, we're looking at a longer timeline, likely 5 to 10 years before treatment reaches the market. Cost remains a major concern. Gene therapies are among the most expensive treatments in medicine, often priced at hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. For context on potential pricing, we can look to Luxturna, the first FDA-approved gene therapy for an inherited retinal disease. Approved in 2017 to treat a rare form of blindness caused by RPE65 mutations. Spark Therapeutics priced Luxturna at $850,000 for treatment for both eyes, or $425,000 per eye, making it one of the most expensive one-time treatments in the United States. To address affordability concerns, Spark Therapeutics developed innovative payment models, including outcomes-based agreements where insurers receive partial refunds if patients don't maintain improved vision, and installed payment options spread over multiple years. The Luxturna pricing model offers a sobering preview of what gene therapies for color blindness might actually cost. Without substantial insurance coverage or assistance programs, such treatments would remain financially out of reach for most patients. Furthermore, unlike conventional medications, where costs may decrease over time with competition, gene therapies involve complex manufacturing processes and specialized delivery, making significant price reductions unlikely in the near term. Any cost-benefit analysis by insurers would need to weigh these extraordinary costs against quality of life improvements rather than life extension, potentially limiting coverage only to the most severe forms of color vision deficiency. Making these treatments accessible to those who need them will require innovative payment models and likely significant pressure from patient advocates and policymakers. But despite these challenges, the field continues to advance. Each clinical trial provides valuable data that informs the next generation of treatments. And for patients living in a grayscale world or struggling to distinguish traffic lights, the prospect of fuller color vision, even if imperfect, represents a life-changing possibility. The journey from lab breakthrough to approved treatment is never simple, especially with something as complex as gene therapy for vision disorders. Let's explore some of the key scientific challenges researchers are tackling. First, there's the delivery challenge, getting therapeutic genes precisely where they need to go, specifically to cone cells in the retina, which is incredibly difficult. The current approach uses subretinal injections, where the viral vector is surgically delivered behind the retina. This requires specialized surgical skills and carries inherent risks. Researchers are exploring less invasive alternatives, like intravitreal injections delivered into the vitreous humor, the jelly-like substance that fills your eye. These would be simpler to administer, but may not target cone cells as effectively. Some studies suggest that modifying the viral vectors themselves might make intravitreal delivery more viable. Then there's the vector design challenge. The adeno-associated virus, AAV vectors, used in these therapies have size limitations. They can only carry a certain amount of genetic material. This restricts the size of therapeutic genes and regulatory elements that can be included. Scientists are working on improved vectors that can either carry larger payloads or achieve better expression of the delivered genes. Immune responses present another hurdle. Even though the eye is relatively immune privileged, meaning the immune system has limited access to it, some patients still develop immune reactions to the viral vectors or new proteins produced by the delivered genes. This can reduce effectiveness and potentially cause inflammation, as seen in some clinical trials when higher doses were used. To address this, researchers are developing improved immunosuppression protocols and exploring vector modifications that might reduce immunogenicity. They're also working on more targeted dosing strategies to achieve therapeutic results with lower overall amounts of the vector. The most fascinating scientific challenge, however, involves the brain's ability to process the new visual information. The monkey experiments prove that adult primate brains can adapt to perceive new colors, but the extent and quality of this adaptation in humans remains an open question. Dr. Michael Hoffman from Otto von Guericke University in Germany has been studying this issue using functional MRI in people with achromatopsia. His work reveals something fascinating. The region of the visual cortex that processes foveal information, the foveal being the central part of the retina responsible for detailed color vision, doesn't get repurposed for other visual tasks in people with achromatopsia. Instead, it remains largely silent. It looks different from the visual cortex that gets input, Hoffman explains, and interestingly, it looks like the cortex we find in people who were born blind. This suggests that successful gene therapy might depend not just on fixing the eye, but on whether the brain can activate these dormant visual processing areas. And the younger the patient, the more likely this activation might be, since the visual cortex continues developing throughout childhood. Some researchers are exploring whether rehabilitation exercises post-treatment might help the brain to adapt more effectively. These are similar to the exercises given to patients after cataract surgery or to children with lazy eye. The idea is to actively train the visual system to process the new information it's receiving. Then there are manufacturing challenges, which are particularly significant for personalized gene therapies. Current production methods are complex, time-consuming, and very expensive. Companies are investing heavily in developing more efficient manufacturing processes, including automated systems that can maintain the strict quality control necessary for gene therapy products. Scale presents another challenge. If these treatments prove successful and demand grows, can production be scaled up enough to meet this demand while maintaining quality and reducing costs? This is where technologies like Apprentice.io's Tempo MES platform come in, helping manufacturers track every step of production with perfect accuracy and develop more efficient processes. Despite these challenges, the field continues to advance. Each obstacle that's overcome brings us closer to treatments that could transform how millions of people see the world. And interestingly, the solutions developed for color blindness therapies may help advance treatments for more severe eye conditions like retinitis pigmentosa or even age-related macular degeneration, which affects millions worldwide. Now we reach perhaps the most fascinating frontier in this field, the possibility of not just correcting vision deficiencies, but actually enhancing human vision beyond what most of us consider normal. The concept revolves around something called tetrachromacy, literally four-color vision. While most humans are trichromats with 3 types of cone cells, there are animals like birds and some fish that naturally have 4 types, allowing them to see a broader spectrum of colors than we can imagine. What's even more interesting is that tetrachromacy may already exist in some humans. About 12% of women are believed to have a genetic mutation that gives them 4 different types of cone cells instead of 3, potentially allowing them to perceive up to 100 million colors compared to the mere 1 million colors that the rest of us can see. This happens naturally due to genetic quirks on the X-chromosome. Since women have 2 X chromosomes, they can carry multiple versions of the genes for color vision photoreceptors. Most women with this genetic variation don't actually gain enhanced color perception. Their brains don't know what to do with the extra information. But a small percentage, perhaps 1 in 10,000 women, may be functional tetrachromats who genuinely see colors the rest of us cannot. But most of the human world has been built around colors for trichromats, including paints, digital screens, clothing, and other products. So even if you were a tetrachromat, you would not have a lot of visual inputs to activate the additional cone cells for them to provide a response in the brain. Tetrachromats would need to get visual information from nature or have a job like a photographer where they could form more of a response from exposure to colors outside of the limited colors that we have built in society, which reflect the common human experience. Could gene therapy potentially give anyone tetrachromatic vision? Theoretically, yes. The gene therapy approach for converting dichromats to trichromats could be adapted to upgrade typical trichromats into tetrachromats by introducing new opsin genes. In fact, Jay Nietzsche's lab has already engineered a novel opsin sensitive to wavelengths between the typical human S and M opsins, basically creating a new color receptor that doesn't naturally exist in humans. Taking this idea even further, researchers at UC Berkeley have developed a technology called Oz, as in The Wizard of Oz, that uses tiny doses of laser light to individually control up to 1,000 photoreceptors in the eye at one time. This allows them to activate specific combinations of cone cells to generate entirely new color experiences. The most notable is a hypersaturated blue-green color they've dubbed Olo. Study participants describe it as the most saturated natural color was just pale in comparison. It's not really a new color, but an over-excitation of a single set of cone cells to produce the most intense saturated version of that signal. It's a color that doesn't exist in nature and can only be perceived when the precise targeting system is active. But the use case is currently very limited, as it cannot be viewed directly, it only works in peripheral vision, and it literally vanishes the moment the targeting system is disrupted. So, as of now, it's an interesting party trick in search of an application sometime further in the future. But here's where it gets complicated, both scientifically and ethically. For tetrachromacy to work, you need not just the 4 types of cones, but also the proper neural wiring to process these signals. It's unclear whether the human brain could develop the necessary opponent process channels to make use of this 4th cone type. The monkey experiments give us hope, since they showed the brain can adapt to new color inputs, but adding a completely novel color dimension might be a bigger challenge than filling in a missing piece. Then there are the ethical questions. Enhancement gene therapy raises issues around designer genetics that wouldn't naturally exist in the human gene pool. Should we be using gene therapy to enhance otherwise healthy individuals? What if tetrachromacy created competitive advantages in certain professions like art restoration, photography, fashion design, or quality control? There are practical issues too. What would it be like to suddenly perceive colors you've never seen before? How would your brain categorize and name these new perceptions? It's literally impossible for us trichromats to imagine a tetrachromatic experience, just as it's impossible to describe the color red to someone who's been colorblind since birth. For now, these questions remain theoretical. The current focus on color vision gene therapy, appropriately, is on helping those with vision deficiencies. But as the technology advances, the line between treatment and enhancement will likely continue to blur. Let's shift our focus to a critical aspect of bringing gene therapies for color blindness to market, the manufacturing process. As promising as these treatments are scientifically, they face significant manufacturing challenges that cloud-based manufacturing execution systems, or MES, are uniquely positioned to address. Gene therapies aren't traditional pharmaceuticals. They're complex biological products requiring extraordinarily precise manufacturing conditions. Think about what we're actually creating here. Viral vectors carrying specific genetic material that will be surgically injected into someone's eye. There's absolutely zero room for error. The complexity starts with the raw materials. Each therapy requires dozens of components, from the plasmids containing the therapeutic gene to the cell lines used to produce the viral vectors. These components must be tracked from receipt through every processing step, with complete documentation of their provenance, testing, and handling. This is where cloud-based manufacturing execution system platforms become invaluable. Unlike paper-based systems or disconnected digital tools, a modern cloud MES creates a digital thread that follows each component from start to finish. Each material, every process step, every quality test is captured in real time, creating an unbroken chain of data that ensures traceability and compliance. For gene therapies targeting color blindness, batch size creates another challenge. Traditional pharmaceutical manufacturing often relies on economies of scale, making large batches to reduce per unit cost. But gene therapies are typically produced in small batches, sometimes even one-off treatments for individual patients. Cloud-based MES systems excel in this environment because they're designed to handle both standardization and flexibility. They can enforce strict protocols while adapting to small batch realities, guiding operators through complex processes without the massive documentation burden that would come with paper-based systems. Temperature control provides a perfect example on where these systems shine. Viral vectors must be maintained within extremely narrow temperature ranges throughout production. A cloud-based MES with IoT integration can monitor temperatures continuously across multiple locations, triggering immediate alerts if conditions drift out of specification. It can also automatically document these conditions, eliminating the need for manual recording and reducing the risk of human error. Regulatory compliance is another critical area where cloud-based MES delivers exceptional value. Gene therapies face intense regulatory scrutiny with good reason. They're introducing new genetic material into the human body. Regulatory agencies require comprehensive documentation of every aspect of the manufacturing process. Modern MES platforms are designed with these requirements in mind. They create compliant electronic batch records automatically as production proceeds. Every deviation, every test result, every operator action is recorded in a format that satisfies the FDA, EMA, and other global regulatory requirements. This not only streamlines audits, but can dramatically accelerate regulatory submissions, potentially bringing therapies to market months or even years sooner. As gene therapies for color blindness move from clinical trials to commercial production, scale-up presents yet another challenge. How do you maintain the same quality when producing hundreds or thousands of doses instead of dozens? Cloud-based MES systems address this through standardization and knowledge transfer. Best practices developed during clinical production can be encoded directly into the manufacturing workflow, ensuring consistency as new facilities or operators are brought online. Real-time monitoring allows quality teams to spot trends before they become problems, maintaining high standards even as production volumes increase. And when issues arise, as they inevitably will in complex biological manufacturing, these systems provide unprecedented visibility. With a cloud-based MES, troubleshooting teams can review the complete history of a batch, comparing process parameters across successful and problematic runs to identify the root cause quickly. For companies developing color blindness therapies like AGTC or MeiraGTx, the financial implications are significant as well. These treatments are expensive to develop and produce, and anything that increases efficiency directly impacts both company viability and patient accessibility. A cloud-based MES can reduce manufacturing costs in multiple ways, decreasing documentation time, reducing investigation time for deviations, minimizing batch failures, and optimizing resource utilization. Perhaps more importantly, cloud-based MES platforms create opportunities for continuous improvement. Unlike paper batch records that sit in binders on shelves, digital manufacturing data becomes a searchable, analyzable asset. Patterns and correlations that would be impossible to see manually become visible through advanced analytics, driving process improvements that increase yields and reduce costs. As these therapies continue development and eventually reach patients, cloud-based MES systems will play an increasingly vital role in ensuring their safety, efficacy, and accessibility. They're not just digital tools, they're enablers of complex manufacturing processes that will ultimately bring the gift of color vision to people who have never experienced it before. The technological journey from concepts in a research lab to approved therapies in an ophthalmologist's office involve countless challenges. But with advanced manufacturing systems like these, we're building the infrastructure needed to turn the scientific breakthroughs we've discussed today into life-changing treatments for millions of people around the world. As we wrap up our journey through the fascinating world of color vision therapy, let's take a moment to reflect just how far we've come and where we're headed. We began with two monkeys, Dalton and Sam, whose gene therapy treatment in 2009 shattered scientific dogma about the adult brain's ability to adapt to new sensory information. That breakthrough opened the door to possibilities once considered science fiction, giving people who had never seen color the ability to experience the full spectrum of visual beauty that surrounds us all. Today, clinical trials for achromatopsia are showing promising results, especially in younger patients. Companies like AGTC, MeiraGTx, and Biogen are advancing treatments that could reach the market within the next 3 to 5 years. For the more common forms of red-green color blindness, treatments may take longer, but the scientific foundation has been firmly established. The road ahead isn't without challenges. Delivery methods need refinement, manufacturing processes must become more scalable, and costs will need to come down to make these treatments accessible to everyone who could benefit. But these are engineering problems, not scientific ones. And if there's one thing we've learned about pharmaceutical manufacturing, it's that seemingly insurmountable technical challenges can be overcome with persistence and innovation. The most profound aspect of this story isn't just the science or the technology, it's what these treatments mean for the human experience. Imagine a child born with achromatopsia who has only known a grayscale world, suddenly seeing the blue of the sky, the green of the grass, and the red of the flower for the first time. Imagine a colorblind adult finally experiencing the full vibrancy of a sunset, or being able to pursue career paths previously closed to them. These aren't just medical treatments, they're gateways to entirely new dimensions of human experience. And perhaps there's something poetic in the fact that we're using the most cutting-edge technologies, viral vectors, gene editing, cloud-based manufacturing systems, to help people experience something as fundamental and ancient as color. It reminds us that for all our technological progress, we're still on a journey to fully experience the natural world around us. The study of vision and its correction or enhancement also provides profound insights into the adaptability of the human brain. If an adult brain can learn to process colors it had never seen before, what other capabilities might be unlocked with the right interventions? The plasticity demonstrated in these studies challenges our understanding of brain development and adaptation, with implications that extend far beyond ophthalmology. For those living with color vision deficiencies today, I want to leave you with a message of hope. The science is advancing rapidly, the manufacturing infrastructure is developing to support these complex therapies, and the human need, the desire to experience the world in full color, is driving continued investment and innovation. Whether you're someone who has never seen color, a parent of a child with achromatopsia, a professional in pharmaceutical manufacturing, or someone simply fascinated by the intersection of science and the human experience, there's reason for optimism. We're building a future where color vision could be available to everyone. In the meantime, technologies like special glasses for color blindness and digital apps that enhance color contrast offer interim solutions. And awareness of color vision deficiencies continue to grow, leading to more accommodations in education, workplace settings, and digital design. As we close today's episodes of Industry Insights, I'm reminded of a quote from Helen Keller, who never experienced vision or hearing, but wrote eloquently about both. The only thing worse than being blind is having sight, but no vision. Today, we've explored how science is giving people not just sight, but fuller vision, the ability to see the world in all its colorful glory. In an industry where precision and compliance are paramount, Apprentice's Tempo platform offers a cutting-edge manufacturing execution system solution. It's cloud-based, mobile-first, operator-centric, with the most intuitive UI in the industry, making it perfect for today's dynamic pharmaceutical manufacturing environments and for the production of the world's most complex drug products. Whether you're working on groundbreaking cell and gene therapies, biologics, or small molecules, Tempo provides a fully validated MES system that's both powerful and easy to use. It streamlines your processes, ensures compliance, and adapts to your specific manufacturing needs. So get off of paper batch records and discover how Apprentice's Tempo Manufacturing Cloud can transform your operations by visiting us at apprentice.io. Attention industry professionals, revolutionize your manufacturing process with the Apprentice Tempo Manufacturing Cloud, a manufacturing execution system built to streamline your operations, boost efficiency, and ensure compliance all in one powerful platform. Experience the future of manufacturing with our free 30-day trial. Scan the QR code on your screen now to unlock a world of innovation. Don't just keep pace, set the tempo as an industry leader with Apprentice. That's all for Apprentice.io's Industry Insights. I'm Frank Maggiore. Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for notifications when new episodes drop. Please comment on if you have any additional topics you would like for me to cover in this space, and we'll see you next week for more Industry Insights.